Inequality is a fact of life in Nigeria. It's not hard to decipher the stark differences between the haves and have-nots in Africa's most populous country. Nigeria has some of the wealthiest people on the continent, while also housing more people living below the poverty line than any other country in the world. I decided to investigate the two extremes in Lagos, Nigeria, by visiting the city's richest neighborhoods and one of its poorest, most infamous slums to show you the differences. What is it like living in Banana Island compared to living in Makoko slum? We're about to find out. Nigeria is one of the most unequal countries in the world, but if you do your research online, it might not seem like inequality is that big of a problem. The most recent data I could find was from the 2022 Gini coefficient, in which Nigeria got a score of 35.1, which isn't that bad, as Nigeria was ranked the 100th out of 163 countries. But the reality on ground is way more different, and from 2022 to 2025, Nigeria has become a more unequal and honestly poor country. Banana Island is the pinnacle of luxury living in Nigeria, at least for now. Everybody wants to live there, and this is evident by the prices. Banana Island real estate prices are sometimes more expensive than what you would get in some of the richest neighborhoods in the richest cities in massive countries out there. Makoko is an infamous slum. It's quite infamous because of it just looks like what people envision when they think about African poverty. We're going to talk about why people live in Banana Island and why people also live in Makoko. We'll look at the major differences between these two settlements, similarities between Lagos's richest neighborhood and one of its poorest. You might have heard about Banana Island. It is in more ways than one Nigeria's richest neighborhood or Nigeria's richest zip code. I believe there are more dollar billionaires per capita living in this small stretch of land than any other place in Nigeria. Maybe Africa, who knows, but I'm sure that there are more billionaires living here than anywhere else. Living in Nigeria is not the easiest thing. You have to provide almost everything you need to live a decent life, and Banana Island is that concept that's been driven into top gear. The community provides its own security, it provides its utilities, and it is a world of its own. It's semi-autonomous in more ways than one. Land prices and rents here are incredulous. You would see prices that do not even make sense. They have to price some of these properties in USD because if you try to think about it in Naira, the number of zeros just do not make sense. As funny as it might sound, there is a bit of inequality in Banana Island itself. Please consider supporting my work by joining the channel as a member if you are enjoying the content. Alternatively, you can choose to give Super Gift or Super Thanks. If that's a bit too much, subscribing and liking is the easiest and cheapest way to support the work we do out here. Makoko couldn't be more different from Banana Island. As mentioned earlier, this settlement is infamous for the wrong reason. Makoko started out as an informal settlement for people that moved from other parts of Nigeria and the coastal West Africa, and it has grown to become something that the Lagos state and federal government would rather have not exist. Many people see it as a blemish on what Lagos is trying to achieve. When you think of Makoko, you think of houses on stilts on the water, but the majority of Makoko isn't on the water. Makoko is an actual community not too far from Iwaya in Yaba. I know regular people who live in Makoko, but the part of Makoko that you see is the coastal part, which is a relatively small part of the settlement. What is life like living in this unusual community? I spent a couple days in Makoko, and it's something that isn't easy to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's outlive. Many of these people are third, fourth, maybe fifth generation of Makoko residents. Why is Banana Island so revered, and why is it where it is, Lagos? Banana Island isn't a naturally occurring piece of land. It gets its name because it's shaped like a banana. This piece of land was reclaimed from the Lagos Lagoon, and as the video goes on, you would notice a general theme of land reclamation. Land reclamation is an ongoing and never-ending process in Lagos, Nigeria. Banana Island is located within Ikoyi, and Ikoyi is arguably the richest part of Lagos and possibly the country. That's where old money and new money converge. Banana Island was initially created as a way to provide more land with greater luxury in this wealthy neighborhood. Land in Ikoyi and land everywhere is finance. These people wanted to create more premium land, and they decided to do that on Lagos Lab. If you are still here, consider subscribing and liking. It means a lot and supports our work. Thank you as to do so. Everybody with a bit of money in Lagos, Nigeria wants to live in certain areas. Ikoyi, Victoria Island, Lekki, probably Ikejaji area. And land here is so scarce that these people go to great lengths, do whatever it takes, because they know that people would pay whatever they ask of. It seems like no community can escape sand filling in Lagos in 2025, because Banana Island was once created by by sand filling the Lagos Lagoon. While makoko as we know it might not exist in the next few years, because as at the time of recording this video, unexplained sand filling has been going on in and around Makoko close to the Third Mainland Bridge. Nobody knows what they're trying to build, and the people in charge of the project from the government and private sector haven't really said much on why they are sand filling this part of Makoko. But if historical data tells us anything, it's that these people are trying to create more land where it no longer exists. Makoko as a floating community has existed for decades, and majority of the people here are descendants of people who migrated from present-day Benin Republic and Togo, with a little bit of Ghana here and there. A few years ago, Atlantic was created out of seemingly nothing in Victoria Island, Lagos, and some people are saying that Makoko is probably the next iteration of this sand filling craze. One thing's for sure, whatever they create here won't benefit the current residents of Makoko, because as with most other sand filling projects, they will need to make way for the new developments. Why is Lagos so addicted to sand filling? There are lots of reasons, but the best and most frequent reason is that coastal erosion is a recurring issue in and around Lagos across most of the Gulf of Guinea. That means each year these cities are losing prime coastal land and becoming more prone to flood and erosion. The only way to fight this is by land reclamation. Land reclamation is often not cheap, so there needs to be some sort of incentive. There's a reason why they keep sand filling parts of Ikoyi and Victoria Island rather than sand filling parts of Badagry. There is demand. That means the money put into the projects can feasibly be gotten back in the next few years or decades. As we speak, Atlantic reclamation process is still ongoing. They are currently in the phase 2, while the Nigerian military is trying to create a new island off Banana Island called Apple Island. They say it's for military welfare, blah blah blah, but they could literally try to create that island anywhere else. They chose Banana Island for a reason. Apple Island, Banana Island, the naming sucks, I know. Banana Island and Makoko seem like they are worlds apart, and they are, but you might also be disappointed or excited to know that these two settlements have a lot in common. In fact, most places in Nigeria have a lot in common. It doesn't matter if you live in Banana Island or Makoko, you will need to provide the majority of utilities independent, either you and your family or as a community. Banana Island operates as a semi-autonomous region in the country where they provide most of their power needs, they sort out their water needs, security is covered by the estates, sanitation is done in conjunction with the Lagos state government, but still heavily powered by the Banana Island Residents Association, and most other things you can think of that make Banana Island what it is today are provided for by the residents. Makoko is not a model of cleanliness, but the little they have there, they do it for themselves. If they want power, they need generators and they need to get power by themselves. If they want clean water, they need to dig a borehole beneath the Lagos Lagoon, or they need to find a way to pipe in water from other parts of the community. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor. If you live in Lagos or if you live in Nigeria, you can be rest assured that the government doesn't really provide much utility. You will need to do it yourself. Banana Island and Makoko are two extremes. One is for the 1% of the 1%, while the other is for some of the poorest people the country has to offer. But a missing link here is Nigeria's middle class. It's safe to say that the middle class has been shrinking for a while, and as at 2025, the Nigerian middle class is almost gone, which means that as inequality widens, we are all more likely to end up in a Makoko rather than a Banana Island. Inequality is a problem that's not going to go away overnight, and if nothing is done about it, we are in for an uncomfortable time. Why don't you click the video on screen now, because I made it specially for you. Until the next video, your friend from the Ukodo YouTube channel wishes you love, peace and prosperity.